Dee-dee-dee-dum, dum, da-da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum, da-da-da-da. Dee-dee-dee-dum, dum, da-da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum, da-dum. Da-da-da-da, 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 da-da-da-da-da. Dum, da-da-dum, dum, da-dum, dum,
Hello and welcome to a new episode of Breaking Mayberry, the show that tries to understand why America got so broken by looking into classic television, specifically The Andy Griffith Show. I'm one of your hosts, I'm Marty Schneider.
I'm the other one, Dan Ludwig.
Alright, so we're back in the studio after taking a little bit of time off. We recorded a bonus episode. We did our live show at South Street Cinema with the Everything is Awesome / Headstrong Comedy Festival. It was a good show for being on a Sunday afternoon. I really thought we had a decent turnout. You wouldn't know it by listening to the audio, but
more people than I would expect to go to a live podcast taping on a Sunday.
I was pretty pleased with that, and the festival itself was a success. It beat its fundraising goal by like more than 25%. Yeah, and all of that was good. But now we're back in the studio. Before we get into today's episode, we don't normally like beg for likes and reviews and whatnot, etc. But a couple weeks ago, I did notice we had like spike in listens and downloads. It was like 60 or 70 in one day, which is unusual for a day that we didn't release new content. And I went and I tried to figure out what caused this. And that was also a day that we had gone from 9 reviews, 5-star reviews on iTunes, to 10 5-star reviews on iTunes. So it really works!
I like that we keep trying to predict, like, things we do and whether or not people will like it. We have no fucking idea what we're doing. Like, it's like we're just, like praying to a volcano god. Like, we just do things and hope it makes the podcast listeners happy. And sometimes it does, and sometimes we doesn't. Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. We're so powerless here.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and actually do the beg up front. If you like the show, if you've been enjoying us, we appreciate everybody who has shared us with their friends. But go ahead and click that subscribe button. Click the ratings and give us a review. That stuff actually does make a difference in iTunes' like algorithms and putting us in different search results and getting us in people's ears. So if you want to support us and you're not a Patreon subscriber and you don't want to be a Patreon subscriber, the easiest way you can do that is by reviews, shares, and ratings. So go ahead and do that right now. We'll wait. All right, we're good. Ready?
Are we actually wait? I feel like that was too short for them to do that, but yeah, okay, let's go.
There's a pause button. That's how podcasts work.
Yep. Sure.
All right, so today's episode sucks.
So, dude, honestly, this show has sucked so bad for so long, and it is really starting to like wear me down. Like, it's honestly what it is that they made the shift. We talked about this before. Season 1 Andy was a psychopath, and season 2 Andy is still an asshole, but he's not allowed to really do anything anymore. Like, the joke can never be on Andy Griffith ever again in this show. So there's just nothing, like, he always has to like roll in and solve the problem. So it's all just on Don Knotts to supply all the fucking comedy and problems, which has made Andy Griffith into the most boring character on the show, and Don Knotts into like an insufferable whirlwind of annoyance. And like because they're eventually going to add like 50 fucking characters, all of them being kind of annoying in their own unique way. But right now it's just Barney does something super obnoxious, Andy pranks Barney maybe, and then Andy resolves the annoying thing Barney did. Rinse and repeat for the 16th fucking episode.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you kind of nailed it right on the head. That's kind of the problem with these episodes in season 2. In season 1, Andy was part of the joke. In season 1, Andy was even like wrong on occasion and could be one of the more absurd characters.
Season 1, Andy would fuck up, and we would kind of watch, like, is the show going to take his side or disagree with him? Like, I don't know whether or not Andy is going to be vindicated in this very bad thing he did. And now it's just like, he doesn't even do anything, ever. He just hangs out, and then just, like, at the end says a thing about the thing that happened in the show. He's just basically, like, leaning on something the entire episode.
Yeah, but now, that's the thing, is we're in a transition. Andy is transitioning into being, like, full-time straight man, always going to be the relatable character, but they haven't cranked up the absurdity of everyone else around him yet. So we're in this, like, weird little, like, shifting of the scales that isn't super interesting to watch or for us to comment on. Which is great. Right after I told everybody to give us ratings and reviews, the next couple episodes are gonna suck.
We're gonna squeeze some blood from this fucking stone.
There's a breaking point. There is a breaking point, and it's coming up soon. There's light at the end of the tunnel. When Barbara Eden shows up for one episode, it's the horniest thing that we've seen on this show besides Aunt May's entire existence. And from that,
it's so horny it kills the mayor.
There's just the floodgates open, and then we get a good chunk of craziness all again for the back half of season 2. But right now, we just have to push our way through this with season 2, episode 10, The Clubmen, which aired December 11th, 1961, written by Fred S. Fox and Iz Ellenson, who I don't think we've seen.
Iz Ellenson?
Yeah, Iz Ellenson. Yeah, I don't think we've. It's not Jack Ellenson.
That must be a Wikipedia typo.
Nope. I think it's a brother or something. Because Jack Ellenson and Iz Ellenson are spelled the same way. So this seems like an episode where Jack's guy was like, all right, I'm gonna get my kid brother in the writing room.
It shows. He really comes in with the heat of golf jokes.
Directed by Golden Corral lifetime pass holder Bob Sweeney.
They have a table reserved for him at the strip club, Bob Sweeney.
And here is your one-sentence summary from Wikipedia. Andy and Barney are invited to a posh gentleman's club in Raleigh. However, at the club's get-acquainted party, Barney makes a fool of himself by his misinformed attempts at conversation. Alright, so this is actually a pretty classic trope, and we picked another episode that does this trope of a different television show that we'll get into in a little bit.
This episode sucks so much ass we watched Frasier.
Yeah, we gave up.
Why are you being coy? This episode sucks so much shit that you basically hey, you want to talk about Frasier too? We've been looking for an excuse to also talk about King of the Hill on this show because we're both deeply, deeply in a King of the Hill show, and we finally found an excuse. I feel like you watched this episode, looked down at Wikipedia, were like, this definitely seems like a thing Frasier would have done. You probably looked down that as you were, instead of watching the episode.
Shut up, you don't know my life.
I kind of do.
You do exactly. That's exactly what happened. I literally went to TV tropes.
Yeah.
And looked for examples of this trope. So this is a pretty common trope, right?
I'm basically your life partner at this point. Come on. We have a podcast together. That's like a child.
There's an exclusive club, and two of our characters want to get in. And that's a pretty, common premise. This might be the genesis of that trope. And it's always interesting for me when I get to see something in the Andy Griffith Show that shows up regularly, becomes a staple of TV comedy. So we picked a similar episode of Frasier, in which Frasier and Niles are competing with each other for a membership slot in an exclusive club. And it's going to be interesting to compare the two.
It's like the Andy Griffith Show said, hey, what if there was an episode where two people want to get into a club, and Frasier figured out how to make that premise funny by adding tension.
It's so weird. I mapped it out how much more stuff happens in the Frasier episode than in the Andy Griffith one. So let's explain a little bit of the Andy Griffith one before we compare the two. The first thing we see is we're outside the jailhouse, and Andy and some guy pull up in a car, and they were talking about fishing.
As they are all constantly talking about, It is.
There's nothing else to talk about.
Yeah, it's incredible how much you have to talk about fishing when you can't drink, and everyone has to be like super respectable. I get it's just like the equivalent of like playing video games.
They pull up and they're just talking, and this guy, whose name is
Roger Courtney.
That's it. Yeah,
So
they say his name a bunch of times.
the most generic waspy name imaginable.
Yeah, so that we should put that. These are all just like well-to-do, hoity-toity Raleigh people. Roger Courtney invites Andy to come up to the state capitol, which is Raleigh, and to meet the membership committee of the Esquire Club, which is a like fancy club that he's like exclusive. I guess like an Elks Club or like a Water Buffalo Lodge or some shit.
Oh, it's way more It's way more than the water. It like the Water Buffalo clubs are like a bunch of drunk dudes in a rec center.
They never actually explain what's good about being in this club, which is something, again, that the Frasier episode does do. But this is just like an elite men's club where they go and they have dinner and they shoot shit about important men's stuff and they talk about golf and whatever. I don't know.
The really weird thing that is a club. I mean, it's a thing that still happens as illustrated by Frasier. And neither of the episodes really touch on how fucking weird it is for a bunch of dudes to say that they're in a club together and then just hang out.
It's a fraternity for grown men. It's what it is.
Yeah.
It's just a networking thing or whatever. In fact, it's mostly for business contacts, which Barney actually understands. Andy, before he gets out of the car and he accepts Roger's offer to come up and possibly be admitted to the Esquire Club, he does say that he'd be bringing Barney along, because every time he goes to Raleigh, he normally brings his deputy. And Roger says, okay, bring him along. We'll consider him too. Any friend of yours is a friend of mine.
Yeah, if he's your deputy, he must be Esquire material. Very big. Roger Courtney is going out on a goddamn limb there.
Yeah, like, Roger Courtney doesn't know Andy's hiring processes.
Yeah, no, he doesn't. Like, you know, the dude who's super chill about everything all the time, like the most lax motherfucker imaginable. I bet he's like only enforcing the strictest hiring and training practices on his deputy. Like, definitely. But yeah, no, he's just like, yeah, no, bring him. Bring this dude I haven't met to this club full of my friends. A thing I would not do with just, like, my friends.
So Andy goes into the jailhouse. They do this thing where he finds Barney asleep in a cell. And by the way, this is one of the many, many attempts to vamp for time in this episode.
It is a super basic premise. Like, it's just a very basic, like, YouTube-style prank that Andy does that is just elongated as much as possible.
Yeah, so he goes in, he sees Barney taking a nap in, like, the back room. And he goes back to the door, he comes in and he slams the door, and Barney he just wakes up and is pretending that he wasn't sleeping. We should note at one point as part of this prank, he stole Barney's shoes and put his shoes in the desk.
Barney comes out, pretends he wasn't sleeping. Andy says, hey, did you fix that stop sign? And Barney says, oh no, I've been so busy with all the people who have been calling and all the things that have been happening. I didn't get a chance to fix. I'm going to go do it right now.
Quick note on that stop sign. In episode 2 of this season,
yeah,
Barney was asked to fix a stop sign. It's probably the same stop sign. I can't imagine there's more than one stop sign in Mayberry. So either A, it's the same one and he still hasn't fixed it, or B, he fixed it way back in episode 2 and it broke again because he sucks at everything. But I just want to point out, he has been asked to fix that stop sign before.
He sucks so much shit at his job. I like that my reason was, how often do stop signs break? I imagine that Mayberry has more than one stop sign. It's not Disney's Main Street. Like, they do have
pretty
roads.
Damn close.
Yeah. They do have multiple roads that I'm sure intersect at points. He's clearly just, like, not doing his job. And then he runs out to go fix the stop sign without shoes, and he hides his shoes. And then Barney comes back in to try to find his shoes while pretending that nothing is happening. And then, again, they just stretch it. They just show Don Knotts trying to nonchalantly look through cupboards and under beds and all that shit. And then once Andy reveals that he has the shoes, Barney screams. There's a lot of things where Andy fucks with Barney, and then Barney goes like, "Oh, you're real funny. You should join the circus, huh? A clown? You should wear makeup because you're a clown. God damn it!" Like,
he's basically being like reverse Joe Pesci.
Yeah, like, exactly. He's just like, "Oh, what are you? What are you? Some kind of comedian? You funny? You're a funny guy? Fuck off."
Which is actually a pretty good way of describing Barney Fife. He's like Joe Pesci's character in Goodfellas, except minus any like actual threatening ability, like any actual malice or intimidation.
And he looks like a failed clone of Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
He looks like your second attempt at cloning Joe Pesci. You didn't quite get it, but you got the jowls right.
On a separate note, if you had a failed clone of Ray Liotta, it would just be Rob Lowe.
I feel like Ray Liotta. Like, all right, so first attempt, you crack open the tube. Out slides Don Knotts. Okay, that's the first failed. Second attempt at cloning Joe Pesci. Ray Liotta, you're getting closer. So Ray Liotta is himself a failed clone of Joe Pesci. Then you got Joe Pesci. So it takes like 3 attempts. Then I'm assuming, like, do you say Rob Lowe was the...
came through. Yeah.
And then Rob Lowe is what you scrape off of tank number 2.
You came incredibly close to describing the plot of Kingdom Hearts 3, just saying.
What? They're cloning Xehanort now?
Oh, there's so many clones, my man. All right.
Why are they doing the clone saga from Spider-Man in Kingdom Hearts?
It's the clone saga, but it's also a little bit of Voldemort's Horcruxes, quite a bit, but the Horcruxes are clones. As you do. Look, it's very clear that we would rather talk about anything other than this Andy Griffith episode.
I can't believe I'm too old for Kingdom Hearts now. I think I'm too old to play or be into Kingdom Hearts. I was like 23 when I played it.
Anyway, Andy mentions that the two of them are going to go up to Raleigh for consideration of membership in an exclusive club. And as soon as he says the name Esquire Club, Barney jizzes all over his pants. Just Esquire Club! Esquire Club!
You're not exaggerating that much. He does writhe in ecstasy. Like, it is unsettling, the choices that Don Knotts has made to do with his body. Yeah, so he just starts, like, spasming uncontrollably while just screaming how important the Esquire Club is. Oh, Esquire Club! Esquire Club! Oh, it's prestigious! It's like the scene from When Harry Met Sally, but with just him screaming prestigious over and over again.
We should really contact the people who run that podcast that is just a guy reading erotic fiction in a Don Knotts voice. Which I swear to God, we had nothing to do with. They found us.
I'm not gonna lie, I am a little afraid of that person. Their power. Like, the ability to do that, it's a weapon. You could level armies with that.
The next 4 fucking scenes are Barney talking about how important it is that he become a member of the Esquire Club. And they go to Floyd's and they do a whole shtick around Barney trying to get people to, to ask what he's doing Thursday night. He comes in and he says, "Hey, we didn't move our club meeting to Thursday night, did we? Because that would interrupt my engagement with my other club." And Floyd just goes, "Nope, I don't care. Hey, did you get any fish?" And Floyd kills this.
Just blast past it.
Floyd might be my favorite character because he's such a good foil for Barney's bullshit. Because he doesn't care about anyone or anything. And Barney, needs him to care so much.
Floyd is very clearly fucking with him. Like, Floyd is pretending to be dopey, and he is very clearly like, this little fuck is trying to humble brag at me. I'm gonna just blow right past him and talk about my aspirations to open up my own barbershop in Raleigh. Like, he's like, you're going to another club? No, it doesn't conflict. Hey, Andy, so guess what I got going on? Here, who wants to hear about Floyd's deal? And it's just being a huge prick. I think Floyd is a legitimate sociopath.
I love Floyd. I'm really surprised that there was never like a spin-off attempt at just like Floyd the barber, he cuts hair.
Well, he's such a vague and confusing character. Because we're, like, interpreting him as, like, okay, Floyd's an asshole. But, like, in the context of the show, who the fuck, what's his deal? What is the joke with this dude?
What is this guy's thing? I have no idea.
What is this actor even going for? He's the most vague, meandering character. Like, is he dumb? Is he a jerk? I don't know what they're going for. He's just always kind of doing a bad job for unexplained reasons.
It's so weird, and the show needs more of it, honestly. Anyway, so after he finally gets Floyd to ask, what club, Barney? And they talk about the Esquire Club, and then everyone goes, oh, the Esquire Club. Barney and Andy are going to join the Esquire Club. Barney and Andy are going to join the Esquire Club. And that's all anyone talks about for, again, another 3 scenes.
They do have, like, a yelling thing where Barney is like, I want to brag about this. Why aren't you asking me about my life? And Floyd says that he's not one to pry. And Barney says, you keep asking me about when I'm getting married and how much I donate to charity. And he says, like, I'm no longer nosy. So it is, like, a weird back and forth that, like, eventually ramps into them talking about how great it is that Barney is joining the Esquire Club. The best part is, at one point, there's a dude who works at the gas station there, and he's just like, all right, I gotta go. And he's like, why are you leaving? Be like, I have to go gossip about you. Is it cool if I gossip about you? And Andy's like, what? And he's like, I gotta go. I have to just go tell people about what's going on in your life. Later. Peace. And then just, like, runs out. It's the weirdest. Like, imagine if someone was just like, oh, that thing you told me? I just gotta go update the town. Like, it's such a weird thing to say to another human being.
I do love the way they talk about Roger Courtney. And, like, they talk about Roger Courtney from out of town. Like, boy, he's a swell fella. And Floyd's, like, measure of how classy a gentleman is, Roger Courtney, he says, came in and asked him for a haircut that didn't look like a haircut.
Which, if I did that at any barber ever, they'd be like, all right, the Sphinx, do you have any more fucking riddles for me? Do you want it 3 on the side or 2?
It really seems like he's like this Roger Sterling from Mad Men-ass character. Just, like impeccably smooth and just, like, winks at everything he says. Give me a haircut that doesn't look like a haircut, chief.
Like,
and then, like, a wink and a finger gun.
Confucius. Like, he's doling out wisdom. The best haircut is not a haircut. Like, it's so fucking dumb. Like, any barber that you said that to would kick your fucking ass. Like, it would just be like,
okay.
Put down the scissors and be like, outside, we're fucking fighting. I'm going to go roll around with you on the sidewalk. So as Andy departs to just, like, basically get the fuck out of there, Barney says, like, I think I'm going to have to polish Andy. And then it's a smash cut to the jail where Andy is like, what the fuck do you mean we're going to talk about stocks and bonds? We don't have stocks or bonds. And Barney's like,
Actually, it's the one, like, joke that made me laugh in this episode was that Barney says, we need to talk about our stocks and our bonds and stuff. And Andy says, we haven't got any stocks or bonds, and we don't have any stuff.
Yeah. And then
that made me laugh.
It's a pretty good bit. It's like they're learning wordplay. It's adorable. And then Barney says, like, well, what we're going to say is, like, U.S. Steel went up 3 points, and that'll just imply that we have stock in U.S. Steel. That ain't lying. And then Andy says, like, well, that's about as close as you can get to lying, is, like, intentionally misleading people through omission of information, but whatever, I just want this to be over. And then Andy's like, well, how do you know that they're going to accept us? They might not accept us. And then Barney just, like, lights a cigar in the jail and just says, like, we're the Esquire types. So Barney is already being a fucking, like, lunatic. Like, he is actively trying to deceive these men so that they admit them into this club, which is, like, just a real strong basis for social relationships.
Now we're back at the house. Andy's getting dressed. He's getting ready to go. Opie asks what is going on at this club? Obi asks, why is this such a big deal at this club?
He specifically asks,
are there girls there?
Yeah. Are there girls?
Are you going to meet women? What is... Like, Opie's the only one who understands how weird this fucking is. So you're just guys? Just sitting around? What? Why?
So you're gonna go all the way to Raleigh, North Carolina, sit in a room with a bunch of dudes, and then just hang out with a bunch of dudes you don't know? Why? What do you get from this?
It really sounds just like exactly what you do at the barber shop. The barber shop is right there, Father. I don't see the rationale here.
Okay, so Floyd mentioned earlier, like, oh yeah, we all have a club that we're in, and why, though? Because there's 7 dudes in the entire town. They already hang out. Like, what could they possibly do at a club that they're not doing all day, all the time? Like,
hey, Dan?
Yeah?
I want to take this moment. I think it's a good time to talk about it. I think you and I are about to join a club.
Oh, Christ.
You and I have contacted them, and
What?
I have gotten information about, I have said, hey, how do we become an official chapter of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club?
I did not consent to this.
Pretty much all we have to do is just email our name to the official record keeper, and we're members. We've started a chapter of the Andy Griffith Rerun Watchers Club.
Marty,
so, Dan...
This is gonna turn into a fucking militia. Like, they're going to declare themselves like the Andy Griffith separatist movement and shoot up a shopping mall, and then our name is going to be on their listserv. Like, this is the worst idea you've ever had.
So all we gotta do is come up with a name for our chapter. The Philadelphia chapter of the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club. My personal idea is that we should be the Manhunt Enthusiasts.
You're gonna do this, and I don't think I'm ever gonna have sex again. Like, there's no way. I'm not gonna tell anyone about it, but they'll know. Like, they'll find out. Oh, God.
If you have suggestions for Dan and I's chapter name as we join the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club, please get to us at Break Mayberry on Twitter.
Oh, this is the dark chapter in my life.
BreakingMayberry@gmail.com. Thank you.
Fuck.
Back to the episode.
Rerun. The term rerun watchers makes it so much sadder. Fuck.
We're joining. Back to the episode.
Okay. Back to that old episode. So Opie has pointed out this whole thing is weird and dumb. Andy's like, yeah, kinda. And then Barney rolls in, and he's just wearing, like, the most grandpa suit imaginable and a bow tie. And they take, like, 5 minutes to just gush about how fucking hot Barney Fife is. Like,
it's so annoying.
Yeah, they're like,
let's go ahead and skip.
Oh my God. And then Opie's like, oh my God. And then Andy's like, you made me look like a real piece of shit with how hot you are. All right, let's get out of here. It's weird. It's a really weird line.
So let's get to the club.
Yeah.
Remember, Barney is going to overact everything because he wants people to think that he's fancy. So there's a couple of gags where, like, he's talking to some people about golf, but he doesn't really know what golf is.
Okay, so the opening bit is that they're, like, I cannot remember his name because it's the most generic white guy name. Chad Pennington, whatever the fuck his name is, introduced...
Oh, hang on a second. I can get you all their names because the ultra-reliable Mayberry Wiki has an entire page dedicated to just the club itself.
Oh my God.
Their names are Roger Courtney, Jim Baker, John Danby, George Bronston, Wade Kegel, Chuck Pennington, Property Brothers,
oh, crap.
Chip Epstein. I've started making these up.
Yeah, no, Property Brothers sounded like it might have been bullshit.
Anyway.
Jonathan Bravo channel.
So there's a thing, basically, 2 people are talking about golf. One of them says that they shoot about 115, and the other one says, I shoot about 90. And Barney says, "What? You're learning from him?" Indicating to the person who shoots 90. Well, you can't even get above 100 because Barney doesn't understand that golf, the numbers. It's not funny. Move on.
It's the oldest golf joke ever. All right, so the most benefit of the doubt I can give this is that this was the origin of that golf joke that I have seen in comic strips 10,000 times, where like Andy Griffith was the first one to be like, "It's kind of weird that golf, the lower number is better, huh?" And then just North America just shit itself with this incredible realization. The next one after that is they enter a conversation, and as Barney was rehearsing, just walks up and goes like, "So, U.S. Steel went up 3 points. But some other stocks are down." And they go like, "Yeah. What do you think about that?"
That's how stocks work.
Yeah. And then there's just like a long, deeply uncomfortable, awkward pause. This was about the time where I started wanting to like gnaw my arm off to escape from this show. Because it's just...
We're only halfway through the episode.
It's just a series of very uncomfortable social interactions. Not funny uncomfortable. It's not The fucking Office. It's just a dude fucking up socially and long, awkward pauses as everyone is uncomfortable and unhappy that this is happening. All right.
Are you sure it's not The Office? Because you just described The Office.
All right, on to the fucking dinner. So they're discussing the meal of baked Alaska, which I don't really understand what the joke is, because Andy's like, "I don't recognize this dessert." And then Barney is like, "It's baked Alaska." And then it's over. The scene is over. I don't even get the bit they're going for there.
I think the gag is that, like, Barney's upset that Andy doesn't know what baked Alaska is, because it makes him look like a hick. And so he makes up a lie. Of course you've had that baked Alaska before, Andy. You just don't remember. It's a new dessert since Alaska became a state.
Oh, right, that's what it is. Yeah, oh, God, it's such a shitty joke. I don't even remember it. Also, it's kind of, ever since that YouTube shithead, just the term baked Alaska is ruined. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, no.
So did
every time we say it, I'm like, all right, so are we yelling about politics now? Like, are we mad about something? Like, every time I say baked Alaska, I'm expecting to either be talking about something incredibly stupid or be furious.
By the way, baked Alaska is literally just ice cream with like a meringue cake on top of it. That's it.
That does sound delicious. Wait, so it's just meringue cake, like the way that you often deliver most cakes.
Yes.
Complemented by ice cream.
Yep.
Does sound really good.
There's some awkward like handshaking, there's an awkward silence. This dinner scene is just, it's painful. It's just so many sequences of nothing. Back to the house the next day.
Oh, yeah, no, there's smoking, there's goodbye handshakes. Barney is like, "Hey, we're gonna see you guys again real soon." Long, awkward pause as no one wants to talk to him. And then they leave, and it's finally over, and I felt like I was dying. It's so fucking painful and miserable. So, the next day at the house...
Andy's just kind of like nonchalantly talking about it to Opie. He's like, it was fine. Had a good time. The place was good. Had a good dinner. I don't really care. And Opie, who is still struggling to understand the concept of this club, is just like, okay, so did you need like a password? Did you have to give a signal? I don't understand how or why this is a club. Please explain to me, Father. Please. I think I'm slowly turning Ron Howard into, I don't know, Matthew Perry here. I like the idea of this just being like a tiny confused Chandler.
Yeah, that's kind of
Andy's son.
That's kind of his role now, is just be like, "What? I don't understand anything that's going on," and everyone just be like, "I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you, kid. Everything's dumb." They just like usher Opie out and just be like, "I'm so confused." Like, they never give little Opie any resolution on any of his many, many questions.
Barney breaks in. He's like, hey, did they call? Have they called? Have they called? He's just yelling about
he Kramer's in.
Yeah. The phone rings, and Andy goes to answer it, and then Barney says, wait, we don't want to seem too desperate. But then it doesn't ring.
So then Barney calls the operator, has her reconnect the call.
He basically star 69s before that was a thing.
Just like by screaming at some lady. And then he was like, oh, hello, Mrs. Sims. It's for you, Aunt B. And he's like resentful about it and like, motherfucker, you're in their house. You just kicked your way into their kitchen. And then hands it to Aunt B and then loudly calls Mrs. Sims a blabbermouth and says that she's going to keep Aunt B on the phone all fucking day. And then Aunt B's like, okay, so I can only talk really quick because there's a tiny emaciated jackass screaming at me this entire time. And then just starts to have like a really quick conversation about cooking while Barney like yells at her. Like he's like hustling her off the phone. It's like the most rude shit.
I want to just skip to the jail now because really none of this matters.
One real quick thing. As this is all happening, Andy just goes like, hey, weren't you supposed to be handling the school crossing this morning? And Barney's like, yeah, I skipped it. Like, so there's a bunch of kids just like desperately trying to make their way across traffic because Barney wanted to.
Do we go? Do we leave?
Like, there's one leader kid who's like, all right, I'm going to go for it. And then like starts to go in a car, just like blasts past him like, oh God. Like they're all like holding hands and kind of like slowly inching across the street.
So back at the jail, the guys from the Esquire Club, Roger Courtney and company, they pull up, they roll in, they drove all the way to Raleigh for this. And they basically tell Andy, congratulations, you got in, not your weird friend. Fuck him. They even say like, hey, look, he tried. Look, I have a lot of people that work for me, but we don't go to the same club. As if they're kind of like pointing out, like, it's a little weird that the guy that works for you is also the only dude you hang out with.
They
ever.
Make it an elitism thing. Man. They're like, hey, like you don't have to invite your employee. And they can just be like, man, your friend was weird as shit. And he kept ruining various conversations. So we don't want him. But instead they were like, how you shouldn't bring a worker to our club. Like the weirdest, they kind of make it a thing of like Don Knotts was a jackass because he's working class, I guess.
Yeah, they make it like a proletariat versus like elitist kind of thing, which is, I think what this show gets at a lot of times because this show has an inferiority complex, and it just like it's just another example of how those highfalutin people up in the big city don't understand because they're elitist and aren't in touch with the working class. But that's not what showed us at all. In fact, these people were very gracious. They invited Barney sight unseen to come. Like these people were not elitist at all. They said, hey, come on in. And then they were like, yeah, we don't want to hang out with this dude anymore.
So Andy is just like, oh yeah, well, that doesn't work for me because he's not my employee. Me and him are friends. We're really close. He was pressing really hard last night. He was trying so hard to put his best foot forward that he tripped over and fell down. Says, I'm also not going to join. And then they're like, all right, so no hard feelings. And Andy's like, no hard feelings. And they're like, are we still all best friends? We're still all best friends. Yeah. So like, there's like a quarter second of tension in this episode. And then everyone just like high fives and has a great time, and then like the two guys just go like just skip out the door like, we're still best friends, everything's great, there was not a moment of adversity in this fucking episode.
Yeah, and so enter Barney, and Andy breaks the bad news that only one of them got in, and Barney automatically assumes that it's got to be Andy. So this is the end of the episode. Barney just says, well, I won't be part of this club if they won't allow my best friend Andy to be part of it. And he writes down his resignation. He's like, I'm going to send in my resignation. And Andy just lets him do it. And that's the end of the episode. Yeah. That's
the
it.
The stinger is, so Barney is a...
Oh.
Yeah. So, the stinger is, oh, hey, racism, welcome to the party. Because Barney is down about not getting to be in the Esquire Club, and Andy's like, hey, do you want to be in another super exclusive club? Barney's like, yeah, awesome. He goes like, all right, Opie, come on in. It's the Tomahawk Club. And Opie enters in a headdress holding a fucking tomahawk and says like, do you swear to be honest Injun with everybody?
There's like drum beats in the background.
Like, it's straight up the Native Americans from Peter Pan. Like, it is so fucking racist.
Oh, he even does like a how voice, Ronnie Howard.
God, it's so bad. I feel like we should hassle Ron Howard for this. Like, hey, remember that time you were racist as a little kid, you dick? Like, if he ever steps out of line, if he ever says some bad shit about, like, Ocasio-Cortez or something, then just be like, hey, you were a racist little shit.
I just put that in our back pocket.
But if we ever need to crush Ron Howard. But yeah, so that's the fucking episode. There's no... The thing is, like, all right, so at the very end, they kind of hint that they're going to do some class warfare shit. Like anti-elitism. But there's no tension. At no point are the rich guys ever dicks, and no, like, slights happen beyond just, like, Barney is obnoxious, which, yeah, every fucking episode he's obnoxious. So there's not really, like, a bad guy. They tried to do, like, an anti-elitism episode, but without any of the elitism dudes being bad. So it completely just, like, falls flat. It's an episode without any tension or basically any meaning whatsoever. To contrast it against the Frasier episode.
Yeah, alright, so the Frasier episode, I'm going to go ahead and give a quick episode synopsis from the uber definitive Frasier Wikipedia. This is a really long episode synopsis, so I'm going to give a synopsis of the synopsis.
Of Frasier.
But essentially, so Niles arrives and tells Frasier that he has a chance to be accepted into the prestigious Empire Club, which is something that he and Maris have been working to get to their whole life. Frasier finds out that there's a second opening because another member was arrested, and Roz knows the person that can get him in. So Frasier and Niles decide that they're going to team up and they're going to promote each other at the cocktail reception the club is holding. Like, they research together, Niles has got cards, and the two brothers are ready to go. Frasier's date calls to cancel, so he takes Daphne instead, who, of course, Niles is in love with. At the reception, the Crane brothers are doing pretty well, promoting each other, but then they learn that only one place is available because the member who was arrested was acquitted, and so they let him back in. Therefore, Frasier and Niles compete with each other, and they start stabbing each other in the back with bad information and just shit-talking each other, essentially, to try to sabotage the other one's ability to get into the club. The next day, we find out that Niles did not get in, but Frasier did get in. Now, let's go ahead and point out that this is the halfway mark of the Frasier episode, and it's where the Andy Griffith Show ended. So, Frasier feels guilty because Niles worked so much harder at this than he did. So he goes down to the club to get them to take Niles instead of him. Over at Frasier's apartment, Niles walks in and he learns from their dad, Martin, what Frasier's going to do, and he gets really upset because he doesn't want a pity entry, so he's mad. So we get to the very end, and Frasier is talking to the club president, working real hard to work up the courage because he's sitting in one of the luxurious chairs, and he finally says, no, I'm sorry, you should take my position, you should take mine and give it to my brother Niles. And the club president says, well, we didn't want Niles because we didn't want anyone who is in the entertainment industry, and being a radio psychiatrist counts. Frasier, of course, is the radio psychiatrist, and he realizes, oh shit, they got our names mixed up. Niles got in, I didn't. Niles runs in, and he says, you know what? Screw your snooty-ass club. I don't want to hang out with you. You all suck. Later, and that's when Frasier says, hey, you're in, I'm not. And that's the joke of it. Niles comes back and says, no, please let me in, I should be here, and they have to, like, forcibly drag him out.
So this is also a backdoor pilot for our spin-off where we speed explain episodes of Frasier.
Frasier in brief.
Speed Frasier. It's more of like a Ninja Warrior type challenge where you basically have to set the land speed record for running through an episode of Frasier. We expect it to have one person who's really into it, and then no other listeners. Look out for it.
That's pretty much our show now.
Coming to a podcatcher near you. But yeah, no, so that's the entire episode of fucking Frasier. So basically, the contrast is that, so the big moment is, it's basically the same as the Andy Griffith Show. Like, there's an exclusive club. 2 dudes want to be in it. And then they establish tension by making the 2 people compete for one spot.
There's literally any antagonism at all. And it's amazing how much mileage you can get when you insert literally any antagonism.
Yeah, literally any adversity whatsoever. Because once there's stakes, like a bunch of information starts coming out. Because as they start sniping at each other, they start revealing details about each other. So all you just need...
Some of which were really dark. Like, they're making fun of Frasier's suicide attempt.
Yeah. Niles went to jail for mooning Richard Nixon. Because the anarchist he dated was pressuring him. It shows like the role that tension has in a good comedy and in a good piece of storytelling, where you need to have stakes. You need to have like some form of adversity, because otherwise it's just a series of debatably funny things happening, and none of it really has any meaning.
Yeah, it's a good example of the pre-70s versus post-70s TV show thing we've been talking about. It's very just astounding to me how much more stuff happens in the Frasier episode versus the Andy Griffith Show episode. And they both take up the same amount of time. In fact, I think the Frasier episode might be a minute or 2 shorter than the Andy Griffith Show episode because of commercials. And I'm not going to say that like the average Frasier viewer is more intelligent than the average Andy Griffith Show viewer. That would be like snobby and elitist for me to say. What I'm going to say is one of these shows trusts their audience so much more than the other. And maybe that might just be because, one of those shows came out 35 years after the other and had like 40 to 50 years of television history to like look back on. Be like, yeah, all right, our audience basically knows how TV works. But the Andy Griffith Show just wastes so much time making sure you get it. Hey, do you get it? The Empire Club is important to Barney. Do you get it? Let's have this scene over in the barbershop to make sure you understand how important this is. Do you get it? Do you get it? Any like sitcom post 1975 would look at that script and scrap that barbershop scene altogether because it's superfluous. They'd scrap Andy pulling that prank because it takes up like 3 minutes and it's superfluous. It's like the writing crew of the Andy Griffith Show didn't trust their audience and they didn't trust themselves to really sell this idea.
It's I was initially going to be like, well, it was old timey, so they couldn't really handle complex narratives. But what the fuck am I talking about? Like, people have been writing complex narratives for fucking centuries. This was like the post-war era writing was absolutely like challenging all the time. So you can't just really be like, well, they couldn't really handle narrative complexity back then. So is it just like, maybe it was something along the lines of like either TV was super condescending and they were like, these dullards in the South can't handle multiple plot lines, or maybe it was sort of like TV is my leisure time. Like, it's sort of like, excuse me, if I wanted to have stakes and tension in my entertainment, I'd read a book. I'm watching TV. I want just a vague, meandering nonsense and a laugh track to make me feel like I'm around people.
Like, I wonder if it has to do with how far we get further and further away from the vaudeville era. As time goes by. The Andy Griffith period was way closer to vaudeville, which be like the kind of humor that that the audience was more familiar with than anything that came after it. So I think as we get further and further away from that, and vaudeville becomes less and less of a thing, of a cultural touchstone, then maybe television gets a little bit more of an ability to exercise a little bit. They realize that they aren't just going to get by on doing shtick after shtick after shtick.
I'm not gonna lie, vaudeville seems like it sucked ass. Like,
I mean, vaudeville was like the basis of comedy, right? It was just one straight character or reasonable character versus one absurd character. One of them's like acting irrational, one of them's acting very rational, and go. That's it. Just,
Yeah.
You were right when you said it's always who's on first.
Yeah.
It's just a little bit of wordplay and just those two character archetypes forever.
Just basic miscommunication issues. I mean, like, people were funny before this. Like, there's a lot of instances of being really fucking funny throughout the 19th and 18th centuries. It feels like almost like the Andy Griffith Show is comedically recovering from a fucking cataclysm. Like, they're just like, they're putting together basic wordplay. Like, I just got like excited because like, Andy Griffith Show did a pun. Fuck yeah. It feels like a nuclear bomb went off in terms of writing complexity, and we're watching like the apes relearn how to use sticks. I kind of am at the point where I feel like vaudeville was that.
Do we want to talk about this Frasier episode? It's a pretty solid Frasier episode. We can spend a couple minutes talking about it.
What is there to say about a Frasier episode other than is good? Like, Frasier is a good-ass show. I mean, yeah, you can't really, like, we could talk about Frasier, but I don't think we can really say anything about it other than, like, how much better it is and how much it shows, like, how far we've come. Because Frasier is consistently awesome, except for some of the stuff where it's, like, regressive and 90s bad. But other than that, consistently awesome. But it is really a show that, like, blows through information so quickly.
You have to really keep up on it.
It moves at such a clip.
No, that's not to say. Now, there is some pretty funny wordplay in this episode of Frasier. By the way, there is a B plot of this episode, barely, which is just about Martin trying to train the dog, Eddie, which basically only exists in 2 scenes. And Frasier's upset that Martin is using his like imported ham, his very expensive prosciutto ham, to train the dog.
It is kind of incredible. Like, to contrast it with the Andy Griffith Show, it's kind of incredible where you have 2 characters who I would in any other situation hate. Like, I would fucking hate Frasier and Niles so much and make them enjoyable. Like, the joke on every episode is, check out what a douche this guy is.
Niles does get his comeuppance in this.
Yeah.
Like, Niles, there's a key scene that is missing from the Andy Griffith Show episode where Frasier does say, hey, they got the wrong one. Like, where Frasier does let him in on it, and Niles is allowed to stew in his own impotence. You know, and he does receive his comeuppance. That never happens on the Andy Griffith Show. I want to talk about this, like, the way I just talked about the ham, though. And that's later on, Daphne is doing a very, like, cheesy, over-the-top thing about, like, oh, I helped you get in, and now you're just going to throw me away. Like, making it very cheesy. And Frasier gets a line like, ah, yes, I see the prosciutto isn't the only imported ham in this house. That joke rules!
Yeah.
That joke is funny as hell.
Yeah, no, fucking ace.
That's it.
Rules.
That's great wordplay.
Yeah, it shows like one of the things that makes a show like this good is you have to have an airtight comeuppance logic. Like,
right,
Niles and Frasier always get their due exactly the amount that they were dicks. Never more, never less. And it's something that sort of drives us insane is like we talked about in a previous episode where Barney commits murder and Andy jaywalks and Andy gets struck with lightning.
That's if Barney's made aware of the fact that he did something wrong at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes he's so spared his comeuppance that he doesn't even know by the end of the episode that what he did was wrong.
Well,
and I think it's constantly, like, drives us nuts to hear it because we're used to, like, that satisfaction that the character is going to get some kind of resolution, be it good or bad. Basically, Frasier indicates that things mean things.
Yeah.
And the Andy Griffith Show tells us that nothing means anything.
What?
The Andy Griffith Show is so nihilist in its cheerfulness. I can't handle it.
It's not even nihilistic because, like, it would be one thing if just, like, characters don't get punished for doing bad things. There's a lot of shows that do that, where, a character will do something bad, and it's always kind of like a statement on, like, oh, yeah, Life is hard.
Always Sunny is a good example.
Yeah, Always Sunny is a good example. Even Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a good example, where there's a lot of cases where characters will do really bad shit and nothing but good stuff happens for them, and good characters will do good stuff and bad stuff happens to them. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is a really nihilistic universe, but the morality is always consistent, so it still feels, it's not frustrating. The Andy Griffith Show, it's that the moral compass of the show is so inconsistent, and there's so little enforcement of it that it's maddening, because you'll see a character do something fucking horrible, get unpunished. A character will be slightly a dick, get absolutely destroyed. And I think that's the thing that's sort of maddening about it, is when you don't have a consistent moral framework in your show, a character being a dick is the most frustrating thing ever.
Well, caller, it sounds like your frustration is stemming from a lack of verisimilitude inside of the media that you consume. You can combat this with a healthy amount of analysis and self-introspection. That's all the time we have on this call. I've been Frasier Crane.
Thanks, Dr. Schneider. I'm a cameo.
You're Gary Sinise in this episode. By the way, Gary Sinise was the guest caller on this episode. Okay, I think that's about it for us on the Frasier Hour.
Yeah, the
Marty
episode where
and Dan.
we use Frasier as like a soothing balm to just get through this extremely shitty episode. Look forward to the next one, the Pickle episode, where we're just gonna talk about how fucking good King of the Hill is for like 45 minutes.
All right, you want to do some ratings for this episode? I don't, actually. I don't want to do ratings for this episode.
This episode does not deserve ratings.
All right, let's just skip to the end. All right, so thank you for joining us here on Breaking Mayberry. Don't forget to rate, review, like, subscribe, etc., as I said at the top of the episode. If you want to get in touch with us, if you want to tell us what our club name should be, our club chapter name, we are at Break Mayberry on Twitter, breakingmayberry@gmail.com. Oh, we have a new website, www.breakingmayberry.com. Put that in your bookmarks.
Look at it. Look at it. I wrote it. It's mine. I did this. Look at it, please. Thank you.
Other than that, let's see, the music that you heard at the beginning was done by Max Ludwig, and our new artwork is made by...
Me! I did it! This is also me. I've been doing a lot of stuff.
We're very proud of you, Dan.
Yeah.
I think that about wraps it up for us. If you want to get in touch with me on the internet, I am Schneid Remarks that's SCHNEID Remarks.
I'm at the Luds. You people have been using my Twitter to just really call me out a lot, so I guess that's cool. That's my life now. Yeah. People have been using Twitter to just come at me about my word mistakes. So if you want to do that...
and that's it for us. We'll be back with more Andy Griffith and maybe some more other television shows, because it seems to be working for us. That's it for us. We'll see y'all down at the fishing hole.
Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling, tossed salads and scrambled eggs. Mercy. And maybe I seem a bit confused. Yeah, maybe, but I got you pegged. But I don't know what to do with those tossed salads and scrambled eggs. They're calling again. Scrambled eggs all over my face. What is a boy to do?